Welcome to Coffee with Callbi on this, the 14th of July 2026. And great to have so many people and so many regulars and passionate Callbi users with us. We no longer call us Callbi Quality Analysts. We called Callbi Insights Analysts. So thank you for joining us today. And sitting down there in the Western Cape, where are you today, Corey? In Bredasdorp.
It's very cold in Bredasdorp, so I've got the blanket. Oh, I got my jacket over my knees. So good morning, everyone.
And normally coming from KwaZulu-Natal, but sitting here in Gauteng
in
with
this
us
cold fridge.
Nosi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi,
Sadly,
everyone.
Henriette is not able to join us today due to a family illness, but she's with us in spirit, I'm sure. So, welcome to Coffee with Callbi. Today we've got some interesting topics to discuss. And Corey, I'm going to throw the ball to you to open the session today. What has been your highlight of the last month since our last session?
Good morning, everyone. So to the attendees, as always, thank you for making the time. It's massively appreciated. So I was hoping to take this session in two directions. One, chat around some of the interesting use cases I've had, and again, a reminder of, how else you can use Callbi. And then, we've got rating sheets that's suddenly making a comeback, and I'd like Nosihle to take us through the rating sheets. It's included in Callbi. It's there to use, and it has, a specific use case, and it's got value to add. But I wanted to chat around some of the interesting use cases we've seen. So one of the ones that is very topical, and there's a webinar next week, I think it is next week, Rod, specifically around the topic is agent abuse. Our employees are our most valuable assets, and if you're a contact center, it is your agents. How can you use Callbi to identify agent abuse? And the queries have always been there, and we've normally dressed them up as, how do you measure customer experience? And there's things like swearing and racial slur, but they work the other way as well. And remember, you can build queries now, some out of the box queries, and Nosihle and Henriette have query examples for profanities, racial slur, things like insults, things like threats. Now, I always said high-risk customers are threatening legal action in the ombudsman, but we can also do the nuts one where the customer is threatening the agent physically. So keep that in mind, a really useful way to identify those behaviors and then coach and mentor the agents in terms of coping mechanisms and how to neutralize those calls. Rod, I don't want to sit here and chat. I can chat about 20 minutes. I've got a couple other interesting ones to do, but let's just hand it back to Nosihle if she wants to add anything herself.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. And once again, thank you for joining us again this month. Yeah, so not much from my side, Corey. I just want to maybe chat about rating sheets once again. We've seen that it's now taken up, and we've got a lot of clients that are using it. But maybe just to explain what we're chatting about, what we're talking about when we're talking about rating sheets. So we realized previously that as a Callbi community, there's a need for our clients to have some manual checks or some manual audits that are done internally. So we have clients that could use Callbi, let's say maybe for 80% of the normal scoring, but there were some criterias that Callbi is not actually able to score. Stuff like, subjective criterias, or sometimes capturing to check if agent has captured correctly and score that. So what we would have is we would have clients that are using Callbi, but then they will use an external tool like Excel or whatever it is to do those manual scoring. So we then decided as a business, we want to assist or help our clients to house all of these different types of audits into one place, which is the Callbi environment. So Callbi now gives you an ability to score your calls manually, but also create a rating sheet that can have a combination of both. So you can create a rating sheet to check if introduction was done, and that criteria can be checked by a query. But you can also add additional criteria that queries will not be able to check, where you will need a manual human person to go in and check if that capturing was done correctly, or to listen to, I don't know, pace or professional or whatever it is that Callbi is not entirely good in auditing. So criteria that need a human intervention. So yeah, that's rating sheets. We can chat about it later on, Corey.
Back to you,
Perfect stuff.
Corey.
And just to add to all of the existing customers in the call, if you want more details on it, just reach out to Nosihle and Henriette. They'll take you through the rating sheets. It's there for you to use, and it's included in the pricing. So back to some more
That's
interesting
thinking. I'm
use
seeing.
case. Sorry, Nosihle, go.
I'm seeing a comment from Dane there. She says she's loving rating sheets. Yeah, thank you so much. And sorry, Corey, to jump in. An additional part of rating sheets, something that I forgot to mention is after you have completed the rating sheet, Callbi also gives you an ability to then send that scoring or that completed rating sheet to a supervisor, a coach, or whoever it is. So you can trigger an action to send that rating sheet to somebody else, that somebody else will look at the call, assess the call on their side, and if they're disputing anything. So all of this is housed within the Callbi environment, and you can track if any action was taken. You can track if somebody still needs to do coaching and so forth. So yeah, exciting stuff. Sorry, Corey.
Yeah, back to
Fantastic.
you, Corey. Because, won't you just expand on it as a feature of Callbi?
So it's included in the license fees, and the whole idea behind rating sheets, as Nosihle had said, is that ability to do the traditional quality methodology. In other words, select X number of calls for the agent, and then you can have a rating sheet that is both query driven, which I call the objective measures, as well as the subjective measures, which are the ones that you want to listen for. Did they display product knowledge? And it's more gut feel stuff. You can auto rate all of the objective measures and then just focus on the subjective measures. And then there's a workflow component. I can send the rating sheet to somebody for review, and all of the comments associated to that rating sheet remain within Callbi. So you don't have, as is traditional, a spreadsheet gets emailed and it gets emailed back, and then hiding somewhere in an email error. As part of the rating sheet review, I can put my comments in, somebody else can put their comments in, and I can track all of the comments, and it's nicely bundled in one place. And obviously the rating sheets can then be extracted as beautifully formatted Excel sheets, which you can then share with the agent. Back to interesting use cases. The one that's popped up twice in the last month is using speech analytics for fraud detection. It is a harder use case, but what I had with a specific client is where they want to share banking details, which is most unusual on their types of calls. So again, think of things that shouldn't be in the call. My personal banking detail. Let's take this offline. Let me give you my personal cell phone number. Might be indicators of fraud. Typically, fraud is much harder to pick up. And it doesn't matter what the AI vendors tell you, a polygraph needs blood pressure, it needs your heart rate. You're not going to pick it up in tone, pitch, and volume. It is just not an accurate measure. But there are certain maybe keywords that shouldn't be on the call. Why is the agent sharing his cell phone number? Why is he sharing banking details? Or if our bank is FNB and he shares a Capitec bank account, flag those calls for exceptions. The other ones I've seen popping up a little bit more is things like customer effort. It's one that I don't often position. And it got me thinking around silent time. Normally we say it's a quick win for our clients. We do silent time detection out of the box, both overall as well as post-conversation. Post-conversation silent time is more often than not the agent gaming the system. Long calls terminate quickly. They hold on to the line. But in-call silent time could also, there's a long pause, it's frustrating the customer, could be an indicator of either training deficiency, the agent is looking for information or keeping quiet, or it could be, the customer getting frustrated and he's just keeping quiet going, So again, those silent time measures, we keep hammering at it. It is a great quick win for every organization. And remember, silent time is the handle time killer. The other one I also bumped into since our last one was competitor intelligence. What are customers saying about your offering? Is it too expensive? Is a competitor cheaper? or are moving to. It is to build queries to track those so that you can feed it back into sales and marketing and product development. Often Callbi is boxed into quality, and it adds tremendous value to our quality professionals, and it automates it. But remember, it can also add value to the rest of the organization. You pay the license fee, you might as well build out queries to track any number of use cases. Sales and marketing around competitor intelligence is great. What are they saying about the offering? Too expensive, doesn't cover enough. Or if they are churning, where are they churning to? Again, you can keep track of those. Nosihle, I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
No, not at the moment. So I've got a client that wanted to understand what are the cancellation reasons. So for all the clients that are churning, so they wanted to know what could be driving this
That's a
churn.
useful one.
And yeah, so we generally they would know what customers are canceling. So went and built queries to identify if client is saying I'm moving to another provider, or if they're saying it's too expensive. And once you pivot that and you show and the numbers that are, oh, sorry. And you show the numbers that are being matched per query, it's easy to identify what are the highest churn reasons and ideally you can then assist agents to help on how to handle those objections and how to make sure that you try and keep those clients. But yeah, very easily done using queries.
Excellent.
Sorry, I'm distracted.
Glenn, you've got your hand up. Can I bring you in and allow you to talk? You're going live
Oh,
now.
hi, Glenn.
You can switch on your camera if you like. You are muted. Little
He
audio
never
button,
does.
audio button, left-hand corner, bottom left. There we
There
go.
you go.
Just allow my camera. Am I audible?
Yes,
You
you
can
are.
hear
There
you.
we
Yeah,
go.
come aboard. Welcome, Glenn.
No problem. I think I
Okay.
missed the question. Can we just please re-ask?
No, so you had your hand up. We thought you had a question that you wanted to, or a comment that you wanted to say.
No, I don't think I have my hand up. I think that might be a mistake on my side. IT is
Okay,
just trying to fix a few things.
never
No,
mind.
it's
But
fine.
thank you for joining us, Glenn. I'm going to mute you and log you out. Okay. If anybody does want to come aboard and um, um, come up with a question or a suggestion or just something that you've done using Callbi, we'd really, really like to hear from you. So please I'm watching monitoring the list of delegates. So please just put your hand up and we'll bring you in live. Right. Corey, using Callbi for different methods. I've had an inquiry from one of our customers, whether it's Corey or Nosihle, both of you. They want to get our opinion of using Callbi for monitoring Net Promoter Score. The classic has been around for 40 years now, where we would tend to put customers into an IVR system, post-call IVR, and then pose the question, would you consider recommending our product or service to friends and family? Nosihle, have you had any experience on using Callbi in that context?
No, not at the moment, but I always say, I know Net Promoter Score is something that's big in the customer experience industry, but I always have a problem with it because in most cases, we use it to monitor agent if agent could have done something different or agent was or whatever it is. But in most cases, that score really has nothing to do with agent performance. It could be a client that is unhappy with, or whatever it is, unhappy with the business, or I don't know, or maybe they've seen something somewhere else that they want to move to. But I don't think it's always about the agent. When it comes to being about the business, that's where we need to look into. That score needs to be tied to the business performance and not so much the agent performance. But no, I haven't had somebody, any client that uses Callbi for Net Promoter Score.
Well, It'll be an interesting one. I'll be working with this client, developing a pilot on it, both to measure Net Promoter Score and also customer effort score, using keywords and phrases to identify that and to score it. So it'll be an interesting exercise. And if anybody else would like to participate in a pilot program working with me, be happy to hear from you.
Corey,
Right, Corey.
do you have any suggestions on how we could use Callbi to monitor that?
I've actually started putting together a white paper on techniques, thanks to ChatGPT and Claude as well. It has been used in speech analytics elsewhere in Europe and in the US. So I'll be looking I've got one client at the moment who's willing to pilot it using prepared scripts that the agent, of course, has to follow a very clear script on Net Promoter and customer effort. And we'll be looking for those keywords that will be able to give us a very accurate measurement, as accurate as a live monitoring would be. So
I'd love to see that.
I'm very excited about the prospect of that, because in certain environments, and I'm sure we've got some BPO operators with us, where the Americans in particular are paranoid about their NPS scores. So if we can run a proof of concept and pilot and show that we can do it accurately, I have 100% faith that or confidence that Callbi can do it. So let's see the results of that, and we'll talk about it on next month's Coffee with Callbi. Right.
Okay.
Other issues, Corey, back to you.
Rod, I want to circle back to that Net Promoter Score, because you got me thinking around, obviously on the one side you want the score, but where I think speech analytics can really play a role is explaining the why behind
Why?
the low scores. Things like long wait times, things like billing issues, things like product defects, things like broken promises, things like repeat contacts. You can build queries to track all of those underlying calls. So even if you don't, if you understand the drivers behind a poor Net Promoter Score, you can build queries to identify those drivers, and then work it backwards to go, this call had a long wait time, there was a billing issue, and the customer had called twice. Because remember, the customer will say, now, I've phoned before, I phoned many times. So you can pick up those word patterns. And again, identify the detractors in that way to go, the behavior on this call is indicative of that, rather than saying, on a score from 1 to 10, will you give us, recommend us to friends and family. Other things would also be frustration, sentiment. We can all track those, cancellation threats. So, almost having a Net Promoter scorecard within Callbi that will drive through. These would be the factors that would drive negative net, or the detractors from a Net Promoter Score. Let's build queries to identify the why, so we can identify those calls. So it might be a different approach to it as well. Right, back to you.
I think this is a pilot project, definitely worth investing some effort into that. And hopefully by this time next month with Coffee with Callbi, August, we'll have some feedback on that. Lucy, we've got an interesting question come in from Marcia, just for the audience. Good morning. We've recently been trying to figure out whether there's an indicator for first call resolution or a non-indicator. And the main issue comes when the customer or the agent can say the same phrases. We would like it to come from the customer only. Is there a way we can do this? Nosihle.
Yeah, so yes, thanks, Rod.
You're the expert in this, so please respond.
Okay, so there's two ways, right? So the first one is on how the actual call recording is uploaded. I think, Corey, you'd help me explain it better because it's more technical. So there's a mono upload and a stereo upload. So stereo upload already comes through with the agent and the customer speaker sides already separated in the actual call recording. So if you're uploading in stereo, it's easier to say, I want the specific words that are said by the agent, and then it'll only flag the agent side. It doesn't mean that if you are uploading in mono, you cannot do that. It's just that it may not be entirely 100% accurate because the separation is not done in the actual call recording. So Marsha, it would be interesting to see what type of the upload you're doing, if you're doing a mono or a stereo upload. Corey, can you maybe just, it's more technical than anything else, maybe you can explain that part for me.
It is, unfortunately, the reality is not many clients are doing stereo recording.
So Marsha says they're using mono.
If you're using mono, we also algorithmically do diarization or speaker separation. It is around 80 to 90% accurate for calls that are over a minute long. So you can still use the directional one, although it's not 100% accurate. Where with stereo, you've got two separate channels. So that's the one approach. The other approach would be to look at how can you re-engineer the script to indicate that the issue has been resolved. So in other words, having something like, can I confirm that you are happy with the resolution, and then wait for the yes, so that the agent can't just say, can I confirm you're happy with the resolution? Yes. And then the client's going to go, whoa, 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 I didn't say yes, something to that extent. So it might be another way to look at, can we script it differently? And it leads me into something I wanted to touch on is I'm seeing it so much with our long-standing customers, is you've got this ability now to listen for anything in every call. Script engineering becomes a really good option to look at what are your historical scripts, because they've been around for years. How can you reimagine and re-engineer those scripts to be more speech analytics friendly? In other words, having the customer confirm this or the agent confirm that. And, let me just confirm, have I resolved your issue, as a great example. And that becomes on the call, because then you can track that. And for anything else that is relevant to the organization, so that, again, you can pick those things up. And again, the agent not saying that might be just as indicative of it not being resolved than the agent saying it. So sometimes the absence of something is just as indicative as the presence of it. We've often used to say that where, you have these calls, we say, please hang on for a minute after the call so you can do the post-call survey. And the agent's not saying it normally had a call that went a little bit pear-shaped. So again, it's remember to look for the inverse as well. It's an important one. Rod, back to you.
I'm looking for different ways in which speech analytics can be used, how Callbi can deploy it in different formats, like the Net Promoter Score, Customer Effort Score, etc. So anybody who's got very unusual requests, please input them, because we'd really like to tackle them and see how far we can really stretch the technology to be able to deliver the end results that we're looking for, which is optimizing customer experience and customer service. Back to, I said, we're touching on the webinar we're doing next week, which will be really important, not only interesting, but I think important for our industry, and that issue about agent abuse. So look out in LinkedIn. I've put the registration, by the way, in the chat there. So I've got three really, really exciting panelists. Rudy Janssen, who's from Trilogy BPO, who's been around our industry for 20 odd years with a passion for the people side of the industry. Well known to the industry, particularly those in the Western Cape, is a lovely, lovely lady, Cheryl Paardwater from Core Lab, who's also a Callbi high-end user. And Shane Jenks from DCX. Shane's also been around for 20 odd years with a passion for the people side of the industry. So we'll be looking at, and I've got some recordings of some real live abusive calls to agents. I've had to beep out some of the language, but it's by all accounts, and we're finding more and more contact center executives are indicating that there's a growing abuse of agents by customers. Customers are becoming more abusive. So it'll be a fascinating discussion on not only the trends, but how it's impacting agents, how it's impacting our industry, and what is being done. There's some really interesting interventions to assist with the reduction of agent abuse, and then how organizations are supporting agents who are subjected to. Now, Nosy, back in your previous life in the sales environment, outbound calls to customers. What's been your experience in that space?
The outbound environment is a bit of a difficult one because the agent is phoning a client, and in most cases you find that the client has been contacted multiple times. We know what our dialers can do. Sometimes a call can come back and so forth. So you are most likely to find a frustrated customer in an outbound environment because we've been phoning them, I don't know how many times, but it actually affects the morale, especially if you've got calls that are coming through for everybody. So if these customers are, verbally abusing the client, the agents and the calls, whatever, it becomes difficult for agents to concentrate, to do those sales, and then the sales numbers will tank. The overall just, morale in the team, because the sale numbers are low and people are frustrated. And the only thing that agents would say, they find one call where a client has abused, and it's just all the clients are just bad. So it's something that we as businesses really need to look at. How do we support these agents? What do we do for somebody who has had a client that swears them on the call? Do we then say take 5 minutes? And what do you actually do within those 5 minutes? How do we prevent these calls from coming back to the same agent or to the same team all the time, so that we can prevent those things from happening? And that's just in the outbound space. In the inbound space, especially if you are a customer service environment, most of the people that are phoning is because they have a problem. But then you find somebody who has maybe, one of those repeat calls. So there's things that we can do as a business to try and minimize that abuse from coming through. So something like preventing repeat calling, because if somebody's coming through, a lot of times they're going to come through frustrated. And I'm not saying they should be abusive. I'm just saying there's things that we as businesses can do to prevent that. And over and above that, we need to find better ways to support our agents once they've gone through that type of a call.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the critical factors is are our management teams, our team leaders, are they geared, are they trained to support agents? Because it can be hugely emotional, those engagements.
Very.
Yeah. Corey, in your experience now, one of the things I know you have spoken about before, but when you reverse it, where agents become abusive of customers, where we had that case down in KZN, which I think is one of your favorite case studies for the use of speech analytics to identify.
Why are we using KZN as an example?
Because the call center happened to be there. But Corey, I think it's a fascinating use case. Why don't you expand on that, please?
Perfect, Rod. Before I go into my red Ferrari, I just want to circle back to the agent abuse one, because one of the capabilities in Callbi is we can obviously identify abusive customers, profanity, racial slur, and all of those things. And we have what I call an open data out philosophy. So you can extract query results out of the Callbi system via the API. And, the thought that came to mind when Nosihle was speaking is, if I flag which calls have abusive customers, I can extract those query results and feed that back to the dialer team to go, these calls are abusive, or these customers are abusive, potentially cycle them less or stop calling them. Another way to use the insights from Callbi and then influence the operations. But let's chat about my red Ferrari example. So one of the biggest challenges in the contact center is if something happens and you're doing manual, you're never quite sure of the extent of something. So, the use case would be you've got a racial incident in this example that went viral. And the first thing the CEO of the organization asked was, how many calls for the last 2 weeks had the same word pattern? Let's assume the word pattern was red Ferrari. To do that manually turns out to be a huge task, because now you're going to go and review, in this organization, I had 1,000 odd agents. You've got to go and review 1,000 agents worth of calls for 2 weeks to try and get the answer. With speech analytics, it's obviously easy. You can do an on-the-fly query, put in red Ferrari and fire it off. And that's exactly what they did. They were lucky enough to have Callbi, and it took them about 10 minutes to identify 10 other calls that had the same word pattern. They could obviously reach out to the clients and address the issue before it went viral. You know, once off is a once off, but when something suddenly catches fire and 5 or 6 other people jump in the bandwagon, it's a massive reputational risk. But any type of example where suddenly you pick up something is being said, customers are saying your product is too expensive. How many customers in last week said the product's too expensive? Or, you know, if it's support, the product's defective for our telco clients, you know, my iPhone's not working anymore, that way as an example. So don't forget about those quick and easy queries where, and I call them quick and dirty. You put in the words, you push it out, and then you have a quick look at it. You know, it's such a useful feature in Callbi where you can just quickly do a query. You don't have to go through the whole tagging process. Just go and have a look and see if there's anything relevant. If it adds weight, then you can look at productionalizing that query. Rod, back to you.
Can I just jump into that?
Yeah, please do, Nosihle.
My favorite one is always around agents making personal calls. So we've had to go back and create a query. And anybody who needs that query, please reach out. Create a query that would with words that we normally find in a personal call, like "Good morning, baby. How did you sleep? Please check your WhatsApp," or stuff like that. Or "When are you going to fetch me? When are you going to pick me up?" Or, you know, information or words that you normally find if you are speaking to, if you're not speaking to a client, if you're speaking to, I don't know, your boyfriend, your husband, your kids, or whatever it is. And we added that as part of a query. So, and this we found, I think we were doing an audio test for one of the clients, if I'm not mistaken. We found one call that was a personal call. So we said, you know, let's just put this query through. It was so interesting to find, or to for the client to realize how many of the agents are actually doing personal calls. And we found one number that has been dialed 50 times for the past 2 weeks, and somebody was just chatting to their boyfriend. Now that affects you know, average handling time, because you think somebody's speaking to an actual client, you know, they're speaking to their boyfriend, their husband, whatever it is. So yeah, that was an interesting one.
Oh,
And
I always used to say the hello, darling, hello, sweetheart, hello, my love one, but
Yes.
Yeah.
so much context to that.
Nosihle, have you got that saved as a stock query that you can share with other users?
So, and unfortunately, it's not within the Callbi query library, because it's something that we updated now and we created now. But if anybody requires it, we can always send to them.
I think it would be very valuable to have it as part of the stock library. In fact, won't you just talk briefly about what's in the Callbi library so that users can literally hit the ground running with a supply of
Sure.
usable queries. And then when you finish, Corey, can you have a look at Glenn's query coming through on the chat line, please?
Very funny, Glenn, don't want to speak to us. He was just typing here. I didn't see. So talking about the query library, so we've got some, and I always say it's skeleton queries. It doesn't mean that if you access that query library, it doesn't mean that that query is 100%. You can take it and just run it within your environment. There's still some, you know, checking of words, some query refinement that you need to do, but at least it gives you a start. A starting point of the queries that you want to build. And we've got different ones. We've got queries for sales environment. We've got queries, a lot of queries for collections. And it's mostly criteria that are used that the collections industry would want to use anyway. Stuff like acknowledgement of debt, I don't know, consequences of non-payment, and all the other different criteria. So we've got sales, we've got collections, we've got some of the customer experience ones, information like, you know, negative sentiment, you know, threats of legal action, or anything that is, or most of the queries that are customer service based, you can then go in. It's available within your query library. So when you're creating queries, you just go in there and select a category that you want to create a query for. You can find a list and you can get started.
Excellent. Corey, are you able to get back to Glenn on Glenn's query?
I don't see.
So, Glenn, obviously within Callbi, provided you've got the metadata, you can segment the call. So I can segment by any of the metadata items. So if you have a flag that is indicating a sales, successful or non-successful sales call, you can already separate those. The challenge with Boolean queries is it's obviously objective. So you can then have, for instance, the client reasons, and I can tell you those and keep track of them. But the Callbi AI add-on would be a really well suited for this type of use case. So just an update, so it leads me into that segment. We are starting testing at the end of July, and the product is due for release in August. It's going to be an add-on, but it gives you the ability to do large language model style prompting of the call. So to Glenn's example, I can say for the last week, I want to select 1,000 non-sales calls and ask the LLM, for these unsuccessful sales calls, is there a common theme? Is there something the agents are saying compared to a sales call? And then you can have maybe a 50-50 sample. So those would be really well suited to the large language models that understands context, that can do the comparison, which you can probably do with human intelligence as well, but AI is really well suited to it. So Glenn, to answer the question, this would be a really good use case for the AI add-on because you can do those objective style questions and it can give you a breakdown in terms of an explanation going from that. So watch out for the space as it goes through. Next month's Coffee with Callbi will probably be able to demo the system as it's released and with what it can do. I'm very excited. The sort of warning sticker is LLM queries is not for it's not going to replace the Boolean queries because the Boolean queries run against every call and you can have thousands of them. There will be limitations that you can have 40 odd production LLM queries, but it's really well suited for these open-ended ones where you want an explanation, where you want a comparison, where you want the AI engine to give you an opinion around it. Rod, back to you.
Excellent, thank you. We've had a couple of nice questions come in the chat line. I'm sure you're monitoring it. Nosihle, why don't you just get back to Christy and the rest of the attendees today on how to access the Callbi query library.
Can I just maybe share and show the team quickly? Please let me know when you can see my screen.
It's coming up and give it a second. Started screen sharing, but we're not seeing it yet. There we are. We have your screen. Thank you, Nosihle. Go for it.
So was it Christine, right, that asked? So to access the query library, yeah, Christy. So to access the query library, obviously you can go under queries, then you go text queries. On the right-hand side, you see the plus sign. That's a sign that you always click when you want to create a query. Then you can select what category you want to. Same categories that I chatted to you about. We've got collections, compliance, customer experience, and outbound general. So I'm going to select collections. And then when you drop down in the template, it gives you all of the different collections queries that we have in the query library. And you can do the same if you want to do customer experience. You can then see all of the different customer experience query library. And all you do is just click on the query that you'd like to create. It then gives you, and this we've created based on the understanding of what other clients are looking for. So normal greeting, an agent would say, thank you for calling, you're speaking to, how can I assist you? So we've created queries that can help you start your query building process. It doesn't mean that we've included everything here. There are some different variations that you can find that they said by your agents, or there's some information that you see that you may think it doesn't apply to your environment. So you can remove, you can add, you can adjust, but at least it gives you a starting point of your query building process. You will still need to do your whole tagging process, your query refinement, but at least this gives you a skeleton. I always say a skeleton of, of how you can go and create your query. I hope that clarifies it, Christy.
Excellent, thanks. And Nosihle, I noticed those in some of those phrases, we've got vernacular language equivalents as well.
Yes. So, and the guys would know this. If you're building a query, you don't need to build a query for English. You don't need to be then a separate one for Zulu. You can then same query include all your different variations of text, all your different languages as part of one query so that it can match accordingly.
Nosihle, just out of interest, when you're building queries and looking for vernaculars, are you using LLMs like ChatGPT to assist with that? Come on, be honest.
So I don't understand Sesotho, right? I understand English, I understand isiZulu, I understand isiXhosa, but there are some languages that I don't understand. So yes, when I'm building queries and I know that it's an environment that has a Sesotho, a lot of Sesotho calls, I would then use ChatGPT or I'd use Claude. And I don't want to share my ChatGPT stuff because then you'll see what I'm looking at. But I'm searching. So you can then go in, and I always just say, this is a query that I want to create. It's a Boolean query. Please give me different variations. And I would take this query text as it is, go plug it into ChatGPT and say, I want to create a query for introduction using this type of Boolean query. Please add different variations for isiZulu, isiXhosa, da 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 da. And I wish I can show you one. Corey, maybe.
I've had an idea. It's such an important issue, this query building. Let's folks out there, use your little reaction heart signs there to indicate, should we put on a special 1 hour query building webinar training program? Just so everybody can share, and Nosihle and
I don't think
Henriette
anyone is going to
look
say
at that.
no
We're
to
getting
that.
lots of support for that.
I
Corey.
would like to just swing it a little bit, saying not specific training, but how can we use AI, ChatGPT or Claude to enhance the quality of the queries clients are currently building in Callbi, to include things like vernacular, synonyms, and that type of thing. And I've got some examples. And maybe we do that for the next Coffee with Callbi. It is a roadmap item for the medium term to look at. When you've done an LLM prompt, can we now build that into Callbi? But, that doesn't solve the problem in the next 3 to 6 months. So, we've got these wonderful tools. They're free to use. In a lot of cases, I just use the free version of Claude. It'll write the query. If I said, give me a sympathy query in Boolean, here's a format of a Callbi query, it'll then push it out, and then I can select the languages. So I think perhaps in the next Coffee with Callbi session, Henriette's got tons of experience around it. I've got some great examples in Nosihle, and focus around how to use our AI engines that are available to us to build better Callbi queries.
Okay, well, I think by show of hands, we've got a lot of support for that. Okay, Nosihle, you sharing?
So just I think this was my first one. I couldn't find my most recent one. So the only thing I did is, using this example, can you give me a Boolean query and include different variations of English, Zulu, Afrikaans, Setswana, Sesotho? And then I gave an example of a query. Then it comes back and it gives me your Zulu, your Afrikaans, because from Afrikaans to Sesotho, I do not understand that language, but I know there are different combinations of words that you would find. So I would ask ChatGPT to assist me. So this can assist clients, because when people start building, they would say, we are English speaking, so does Callbi translate and all of those things. So there's ways you can get around building those queries by using ChatGPT or Claude, just like how I'm using. Yes, but you may need someone to just go and verify later on, but at least it gives you a starting point.
Okay, excellent. I'm very excited about this, and I think, Corey, you're right. Let's focus our next session on query building, both the old-fashioned method and also using the LLM tools and the AI tools that we have at our disposal. And I think that just about brings us to a wrap. I know everybody's under pressure time-wise.
Can I just ask
Nosihle.
Corey to Can I just ask Corey to just remind, I know I can do it, but I just want to abuse Corey a bit
Thank
about
you.
about the Callbi assistant. And I'm saying that specifically because when we started, it was big and our clients were using it, but I think they forgot about it. So can you please just remind them?
So we and some background for the new folks on the attendee wall is, the Callbi help section was a little bit clunky historically. In other words, you could click on the question mark as it was then, and then you can go and look for the help article. So we decided when we started integrating large language models into Callbi that we should also look at using this feature to enhance the support experience. So if I've got a question around how do I build a query, how do I do a scorecard? How do I do anything like that? And I'm actually going to just share my screen and just show everyone. Just confirm you can.
Yeah, it's coming up. There it is.
Top is something called Callbi Assistant. And I can ask a question. How do I build a scorecard? It is natural language. You can prompt it, and then it'll come back with giving you the step-by-step method to build a scorecard or a query. It's not going to build the query. So full disclosure, if I put in my compliance script and say build it to me, that's not what it's there for. It's there for to show you how to build it step by step in a logical, easy way. It makes help so much easier. It makes help a lot more context intuitive. Same thing, what are rating sheets? Since we spoke about it. And it's going to now bring out what is rating sheets, how to use them, and what to do with them. So this is really, really a useful feature. It is there if you're not sure about something. There we go. What are rating sheets, key features, the structure, and how to use it. So a really nice way just to get that quick. I'm not sure about something. How do I do that? Now ask the Callbi assistant. It's large language model driven. You can do natural language English into it and then get your output.
Excellent. Thanks for doing that. Once again, there are just so many wonderful features within Callbi as standard features, and they're there to be used. And if we are there, our whole team are here to support any of our users, our insights analysts. We're no longer QAs, we're insights analysts. So, by show of hands, has everybody enjoyed and got value from today's session? Our CEO, by the way, he monitors the number of hearts that he sees on the Zoom report. Okay, we're getting lots of hearts and hands. Thanks, everybody. That's really great. So just around the room, Nosihle, last words from you, sitting in. When are you going back to your beloved, warm KZN?
I was supposed to leave on Sunday. I am leaving on Thursday. I cannot manage. I've never had to use a heater so much in my life. This place is cold. I don't know how Joburg people survive. But nonetheless, thank you so much. And as always, thank you for joining. Looking forward to seeing you again next month.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And down in also freezing Western Cape, Bredasdorp, Corey.
From my side, I love these sessions. Often we have a plan around the direction it goes in, and then it takes a complete different take. Thank you all for attending. We enjoy it. If there are any suggestions as to themes you would like to cover in the Callbi sessions, our Coffee with Callbi sessions, please share those with us, because it also helps us to understand, for us, we want to talk about the things we want to talk about, but if there are specific things you would like us to talk about, please just drop us a mail or a note, and we will then bring that into the Coffee with Callbi, as well as if you want to be a panelist and share some of your thoughts, some of your experiences. Again, feel free. This is your session to get value from it.
We'll get Glenn next time.
Yeah, there we go. Glenn, we'd love to have you on. As I said, I keep reiterating, we're a Callbi community. It's wonderful to see people coming back month after month and contributing and participating in it. One of the things we'd like to do going forward is to allow Callbi members or members of the community to talk to each other as well. There's a lot of learning to be got by sharing experiences, so we'll certainly be facilitating that going forward. So our next Coffee with Callbi will be in August. It'll be around about the 12th or the 13th of August. And our next session, as we keep mentioning, is the agent abuse session. That's next Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. I have put the registration link into the chat line. We will do a follow-up. I will be editing the recording of today's session. That should be up in a day or two on the YouTube channel. Please like and share and subscribe to the YouTube channel just to be kept up to date on new product information, etc. And we look forward to seeing you next month. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you on Coffee with Callbi next month, but also
Thank you,
some of
guys.
the other webinars be running under the Thought Leadership Drive that we are initiating. Just out of interest, there's also another webinar which will be taking place in August on the impact of AI on jobs. This is a very important one to look at, and there are pros and cons, and there are some very interesting trends taking place in that space. So another very interesting webinar. Watch the LinkedIn, watch your newsletters, and we look forward to seeing you. So from my side of things, thank you once again. Show us some hearts, and we say goodbye from Joburg as well. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.